This is a remote island in Saudi Arabia showing construction workers with all sorts of villas and buildings being built. The Earth is surrounded by countless eyes observing, monitoring, and attempting to comprehend every detail of your daily life. These are our satellites, and there are thousands of them. The orbit is packed with geostationary KH-11 capsules with incredible resolution. Just in the 1980s, they were able to read the license plate off people's cars, so just imagine what they can see nowadays. Focusing on facial recognition is a distraction, and the whole anti-facial recognition rhetoric is designed to make people focus on an irrelevant problem when the real issue is the spy satellites that have been looking at more than just faces for decades. They claim they only use them for foreign terrorism and similar purposes, but we know the NSA spies on its citizens, and the NRO is doing the same thing. There's not much protection against them either. They are looking at the majority of Earth at any given moment, and we definitely have continuous capture capability. There's no way the US government would not use a tool as powerful as Starlink to further their intelligence gathering and communications. The Wall Street Journal reported in February on a $1.8 billion classified Starshield contract with an unknown intelligence agency, without detailing the program's purposes. Reuters disclosed for the first time that the SpaceX contract is for a powerful new spy system. This system includes hundreds of Earth imaging satellites that can operate as a swarm in low orbits. The spy agency working with SpaceX is the NRO. These can track ground targets and share data with US intelligence and military officials, enabling them to capture continuous ground imagery nearly anywhere on the globe. This aids intelligence and military operations. Roughly a dozen prototypes have been launched since 2020 on SpaceX's Falcon 9 rockets. The network aims to expand the US government's remote sensing capabilities greatly. It will consist of large imaging probes that use lasers to pass imaging data and other communications across the network. In 1957, the first artificial satellite in space was launched, known as Sputnik 1. Newspapers in the 50s went into a frenzy about this event, and fear-mongering peaked among Americans. The Sputnik crisis was a period of public fear and anxiety about the perceived technological gap between the United States and the Soviet Union caused by the launch. The crisis was a key event in the early Cold War that triggered the creation of NASA and the space race between the two superpowers. It was launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome on October 4, 1957. The term was coined by then US President Dwight Eisenhower. Just 50 years later, a mind-boggling 912 satellites were orbiting the Earth. In 2024, this number has hit 9,900 and is expected to rise as Elon Musk's SpaceX alone plans to expand its fleet of Starlink satellites to an astounding 42,000. Almost 60% of all satellites orbiting the Earth are Starlinks. In the near future, tens of thousands of these spacecrafts will be in orbit. Starlink is just the first constellation, and various other private organizations and nations will be racing to launch their own probes. Having said that, only some satellites are meant for observation. Half of them, which are currently in orbit, are used for communication. However, currently over 8,000 of these in orbit are used for surveying. They cover every inch of the planet. You can see how detailed and clear this image taken from a satellite is. Twice a day, they circle the Earth, capturing digital images for the CIA, the military, and international governments. They follow our every move as they fly over us. In the late 50s, the CIA launched the world's first spy satellite called Corona. Its main purpose was to use imagery to collect intelligence on the Soviet Union in the Cold War era, offering high-definition photos of military installations, as can be seen here in these photos of Russian airfields. Early spy satellites dropped capsules of film into the Earth's atmosphere, after which they were recovered either mid-air or in the sea by another aircraft, and brought to the ground for further examination. In 1964, dubbed the most serious breach of security during the entire Corona program, a capsule was missed and ended up in the South American jungle. The US had much trouble recovering it from the farmers who found it, after which the Venezuelan government confiscated it from them. However, modern spy satellite imagery is highly advanced now. The surface of the Earth can be seen in astonishing detail thanks to digital imagery. Because of the high quality and sophisticated sensors used to take these photos, even the smallest details on the ground can be seen. The fact that we can obtain these pictures so frequently sounds cool but overwhelming at the same time. Since they orbit the Earth numerous times daily, we can get real-time images of what's happening on the ground. There are countless scientific benefits to this, and it is super useful for studying weather trends, monitoring natural disasters, and keeping a watch on urban development. But the main reason why governments are investing so much into this is that it makes it easier to keep track of you. The latest space data claims that it can follow moving objects on the ground as little as 16 centimeters in size with their SR Elite satellite. This high resolution enables us to track changes in the natural landscape, map metropolitan areas, monitor infrastructure, and, above all, assist the authorities in tracking specific persons. This is as good as they can legally go. US laws prohibit satellites with resolutions higher than that. However, businesses are attempting to lower this restriction to remain competitive in the global market, which does not always impose such limitations. However, that is not the best today's satellites have to offer. They have come a long way, allowing use for many applications in numerous fields. Early probes had an 80M resolution, while modern probes nowadays have resolutions of up to 1 to 10 cm, which was proved after Trump's tweet in 2019. He shared a photo taken from a Keyhole 11 spy satellite of Iran's rocket launch failure. Experts were shocked to see how clear the photo was. After further observation, it was concluded that the image was at least 10 centimeters in resolution. Let's see what an even better picture looks like. This is a 2 centimeter image. Notice how everything is crystal clear, and you can see the tiniest possible details on the ground. We can only wonder how advanced technology is in the hands of the government, and how well they use it if such cutting-edge technology is accessible to the common population. There is no doubt that the government is monitoring people and their activities on the ground through these satellites. They can track movements, capture detailed images of specific places, and even eavesdrop on emails and phone calls. Although it's not exactly like the movies where they zoom in and read a newspaper over your shoulder. In 2009, Lockheed Martin launched an unusual satellite from Cape Canaveral into orbit. Neither the company nor the government announced what kind of satellite it was. However, a press release issued a few days before the launch stated that it was a communications satellite. What makes it so unusual is that no government agency claims ownership of it. This is unprecedented. Even the secretive National Reconnaissance Office acknowledges the probes that it owns, and it raises some eyebrows about what is going on. Even the name, Palladium at Night, or PAN for short, is mysterious, which makes it all the more intriguing. In reality, it isn't just your typical communications satellite. It's more like a spy spacecraft, listening in on other probes. People started suspecting this a few years back because it behaved strangely compared to other space capsules. It seemed to focus its attention on specific regions on Earth, suggesting it was snooping on phone calls in those areas. Around the same time it had started its spying mission, there was a noticeable increase in drone strikes, especially in places like Yemen. This got people wondering if it was helping to find targets for these drone strikes by tracking their phone calls. It consistently moved adjacent to sat phone satellites, presumably to monitor their traffic and pinpoint locations on the ground for targeting operations. It also may be used to listen to the conversations and gather economic intelligence about business plans in various regions. This discovery was made by a small group of amateur satellite trackers, but they decided not to make this news public to avoid interfering with the PAN's spying mission, and discussion was kept within a small inner circle. There are both benefits and drawbacks to these satellites. On one hand, it can be used to study the planet and monitor weather patterns, climate change, and natural disasters. On the other hand, it can also be used by businesses and governments to track and monitor people without their consent. You depend on the precise timing provided by GPS satellites each time you pay using the Visa network. They help in improved weather monitoring and forecasting, which not only improves disaster resilience and can also lead to better crop management in the agriculture sector. Combine that with repeated observations of crops to measure yield density, off-gassing, moisture content, and you get the potential for increased yields, which lowers environmental damage and negative economic effects. Another great advantage of them is real-time Earth imagery. We take for granted how at a touch of a button we can get Google Satellite View and can check how congested the traffic is before making a grocery run. The biggest way they help improve your life is fighting climate change. Satellites can observe weather patterns and atmospheric composition, pinpoint areas with high emissions, measure ocean and atmosphere parameters, etc. All of these things are crucial to studying and fighting climate change and protecting life on Earth. In conclusion, satellites have revolutionized our lives. From Sputnik to Starlink, they've altered how we communicate, navigate, and understand our planet. Having said that, they also raise important questions about how they're being used for spying and surveillance. Governments must ensure that the privacy of the people is not breached. Maybe we all will get used to this in the end, as this is unavoidable. The pace of progress is hard to stop, but strict laws should be made to ensure that the government does not misuse this technology unethically.